Hey guys, and welcome to a new episode of The Terra Show. Last week we talked all about romance in video games. You guys had this to say in the comments. Archaeos Sephiroth mentioned that there was one other game that felt a lot like Dragon Age when it came to relationships. The Witcher is another game with such romances, but not as varied as Dragon Age or Mass Effect. Nothing else really comes to mind. I feel like most of the other viewers also shared that sentiment, where there weren't many other games that came to mind when it comes to, really open and varied relationships in games. YouTube said, usually people that want to marry kids go to prison. I wasn't necessarily saying you should be able to marry kids or that that's a good thing, but I like the openness and the open-mindedness of that kind of video game. I feel like there should be things that are taboo or don't necessarily work with morals and stuff that are in video games because it's not really real. A lot of people take things in video games too much to heart, and I don't agree with that. Kind of like when we were talking about hatred. You should be able to go on a murdering spree in video games, but of course, that's not good in real life. And Mara the Maven had a lot of really awesome points. I'll let you read that for a second while I talk about my opinions on it. I really like the points that he or she is making, and as a bisexual myself, I also agree that it's good to have points from both sides. One thing I like is that he or she addressed that it doesn't necessarily have to mean that every game should address sexuality, it just means that there should be more openness as a spectrum with sexuality. Games shouldn't be afraid to tackle different things, but I understand why games are afraid to, because they don't want other people not being able to play it because their guardian or other moral people say that it's wrong. For instance, parents banning it from their kids. That means less sales, and that means more controversy. But as we've seen with hatred, controversy can sometimes be a really good marketing tool. And in that regard, I kind of don't like it when people only use controversy as a marketing tool, rather than actually making a good, valid point. That kind of sounds like selling out, doesn't it? But anyway, let's jump into this week's topic. Don't you guys hate it when developers make a new remake of something, but it has barely any improvements or differences from its predecessor? We just love when one of our all-time favorite games is taken and then remade into something more modern. For instance, how much do we really want a Final Fantasy VII remake? Like, every single person in the world that loves Final Fantasy, even people who don't really like the rest of the franchise, just really want a Final Fantasy VII remake. But that's mostly because the graphics are just so terrible and the next gen can make that so beautiful, and the story is so amazing it needs to be remade. But at the same time, it seems like developers are remaking things that don't necessarily need to be remade because they already looks pretty good, or they're just kind of making it from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4. It's not that big of a change. Why do we need that remake? So without further ado, let's have a look at some of the remakes that came out this year. I know I've missed a few, but I want to have a complete list down here of all the things that were remade, so take a look. One of the most anticipated remakes of the holiday season is of course Grand Theft Auto 5. Kingdom Hearts 2 gets a remake almost 9 years after it came out for the PlayStation 2. This one I'm actually really excited about because PlayStation 2 is a huge difference from, like, PlayStation 4. Or even the end of the PlayStation 3 was so much better than PlayStation 2. Square Enix gave Sleeping Dogs and Tomb Raider a definitive edition. And Nintendo has sold over 3 million copies in just 3 days of the remade Pokemon games. These Pokemon games also make a little bit of sense when it comes to being remade. Some of them don't, but this one does. I feel like NES Remix is a really great way to remake old Nintendo games. Instead of going back and dusting off your old consoles that don't even have an HDMI or pirating them using an emulator, you get to play them in a really cool and fun and party way. Ubisoft remade Assassin's Creed Liberation for not the Vita, but the actual home consoles, which I think is really cool because female protagonist. And a huge failure in my opinion, Diablo 3 got remade into a console version, which just doesn't make any sense to me. The 2 Metro games will graphically enhanced and released with Metro Redux. The complete Ratchet & Clank series and the Sly Cooper series got released on Vita, which I think is really cool, but I'd rather have it on a regular console, not a portable. One of the best games of 2014 got remade for the PlayStation 4. Of course I'm talking about The Last of Us, which, there's some upgrades, but at the same time, it's not really necessary. Microsoft has released some of its old franchises, including Age of Mythology. And of course we need to mention the updated release of the Fable trilogy, which includes the very first Fable. And then there was Ubisoft's updated version of the original Far Cry. I know that remakes come out all the time for a bunch of different reasons, and sometimes I think it's a really good reason and I actually really love them. But other times it's just kind of stupid. Some of my favorite remakes of all time include the DuckTales remastering. Die, bitch, die. Yeah. And one of the remakes I love the most is The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. It's not necessarily a remake, as it is just adding more things on and porting it to console, but it's freaking amazing. And of course, like I said before, I'm still holding out hope that they're gonna remake Final Fantasy VII, the best Final Fantasy in the whole series. When it comes to remakes, I really like seeing really old games made into something with really good graphics and next-gen capabilities. But when it's just porting something from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4, it seems kind of dumb. And I wouldn't really call those remakes. But something like the old Fable, holy shit, yes. What are your experiences with remakes? Do you like them? In what cases do you like them? In what cases do you not? If you have, a varied opinion. Let me know down in the comments and we'll talk about it next week on The Terra Show. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you check out my own personal channel down in the description. See you guys next week. Mwah.